So this person had evil in his heart. And he went up the stairs and he picked up a piece of firewood, an old oak log. He slammed her face and her head so hard that it instantly killed her. He also strangled her. Then he drew the sheets up over her neck so it looked like she was sleeping. And he opened the next room, and that was my room.
Why did you decide to study at Florida State University?
When I was 6, I was in grade school, and I became ill. There was a doctor from Cuba, and the doctor approached my parents and said, I have experimental chemo, which I think could help your daughter. I think she has childhood lupus. And my parents were, yes, anything. So I went to have chemo. I had to have 9 months of it. And it was in Miami, and I remember going to the doctor's office and laying on the metal table as I was given the chemo. After a couple sessions, I lost all my hair. Now I'm in 7th grade. I'm homebound. I have no hair. I look out the window, and I see the kids playing, but no one could come in and play with me. During the days, they were long. I'd get so lonely, sometimes I would just dial 0 for the operator, just to have someone to talk to. And a lot of times they would speak with me, and other times they were too busy. But that was my reach out to the world. When I was homebound and growing up, my parents were very protective of me. And it was important to me to become my own person, to get away from that feeling of protection all the time. So I looked at the map of Florida, and I saw the different schools that were available for me. And I saw that Florida State was as north and as far away from Miami as I could get and still pay in-state tuition. In the fall of '76, my freshman year, I had friends around me, but I knew all the sororities had so many friends within the groups. I wanted to join a sorority. I had one sister, and I thought it'd be great to have 40 sisters. So I went through Rush, which is a time when women get all dressed up and go to different sororities. And at that point, you left, and sorority kind of detailed you on what they liked and what they didn't like about you. And you went to another sorority house, and then they did that to you, and you had several to choose from. And when it boiled down to just a couple, I thought Chi Omega was the best fit for me. I liked what they did as social and civic duties, and I just thought it was a happy place. So I pledged Chi Omega, and they accepted me as a pledge. So Chi Omega meant everything to me. I had 40 new sisters. I was in the dormitory as a freshman year. And my parents thought it was not a safe place for me to be on campus. They thought it was dangerous. They made arrangements in the spring of 1977 for me to live and move into the sorority house. They thought it was much safer there. We had a house mother who was always on campus, on site. And she was a wonderful older woman, and we always felt comfortable just sitting in her little apartment and talking with her. The house was beautiful. I had my bedroom was on the 2nd floor of the sorority house. Our bedroom looked over the back parking lot. It was about the size of a dormitory, and it had 2 twin beds for myself and my roommate. It had a dresser and a closet. And between our beds, we had a little footlocker, a small trunk, and we would put our books and things on top of that. So my room was wonderful. My parents thought that this house was going to be safe for me. They had no idea that when I moved into the sorority house, what evil was going to come and attack me. On Saturday, January 14th, I was invited to a wedding of some friends I had met on campus, and it was an afternoon wedding, and we went and had the reception afterwards, and went out and had a potluck dinner with my friends. And then I decided that I should go to bed or go home early because I had a chemistry test. And I thought I should at least study it a little bit. Around 8:30 or 9, I went home and I got in my bed and I started to study. I put my back against the back wall, which was a complete bank of windows that looked over the parking lot. Our curtains were always open because we hung plants on the curtain rods. During the day, it was very bright and sunny, and at night, it was very dark. Around 11:30, my roommate and I decided to go ahead and go to sleep for the night, and we did. During the night, around 3 in the morning, there was someone who was hiding in the bushes in the back parking lot of the sorority house. And this person had seen that the lock on the door was not completely working. Sorority sisters would go in the back door and the lock didn't lock. So this person had evil in his heart. And he went up the stairs and he picked up a piece of firewood, an old oak log. He entered the back of the sorority house, the dark house. He walked through the rec room and up the stairs that were in the foyer. At the landing, there were halls on each way, and he turned to the right where my sorority room was. The first room he approached was Margaret Bowman. She was a beautiful young woman. She was into merchandising and a senior, and she just had such poise and such eloquence to her. She was just a beautiful, beautiful girl, and I always felt comfortable talking with her. Again, just to talk about her day, and she'd ask me about mine. So she was a wonderful person. And that person with the log opened her door and attacked her with that log. He slammed her face and her head so hard that it instantly killed her. He also strangled her. Then he drew the sheets up over her neck so it looked like she was sleeping. He then walked across the hall, and this was Lisa Levy's room. She was vibrant, she was an athletic, she was a wonderful girl and happy all the time. And we'd all sit in there and do our nails and our toenails and talk about the day. When he opened her door, he closed it and he attacked her with that same log. He then raped her and he bit her. He was so quiet in killing us, in killing Margaret, in killing Lisa. I never heard a scream. I never heard anything. He attacked them so swiftly and killed them so quickly. And he opened the next room, and that was my room, room number 8. As he opened the door, I heard the bottom of the door swish against the carpet. I was a light sleeper, and I heard that noise, and it didn't wake me up. It just I knew a noise happened. I didn't know what it was. The next thing I remember was this big crashing sound. This person had tripped between that little locker we had between our beds. He tripped over it and made a loud sound. He then walked to my side of the twin bed. He lifted his arm up over his head, and he had that oak log in his hand, the same one he had just killed Lisa and Margaret with. He lifted his arm and he slammed that oak wood on my face. And when he attacked me, he made no noise. He said nothing. He did not utter a sound. At first it didn't hurt. It felt like hitting a sack of potatoes. I saw him and I was scared. And then I really began to hurt. And the blood was on my face, and it was terrible. I was crying. At this point, my roommate started to wake up because she heard the commotion. He walked over to her side of the bed, and he attacked her with that same log. He broke several bones in her body, in her face. He broke her arm. He then heard me moving again. Hearing me, he came back over to my side of the room. My face is just in torture. But I had made myself into the smallest little ball I could make in my bed because I thought if he couldn't see me, he wouldn't kill me. Again, it was just a black figure, a mass, standing next to me. And just as he raised his arm again over his head, holding that piece of firewood, the window lit up and a bright light shone into our bedroom. And from the parking lot into the room, it was just bright and beautiful light. And I could open my eyes in this little bitty ball, and I could see someone standing there now. And this person was kind of antsy, just kind of not knowing if I saw him or what the light was outside or what to do. So he turned around and left our room. He ran down the staircase and out the front door. Meanwhile, the room got dark again. And this light had been a car bringing home a sorority sister at 3 o'clock in the morning. After the room was dark, I was still in my little ball because I thought he was definitely going to come back and kill me. After a while, I passed out and became unconscious. While I was, my roommate got up out of bed and walked into the hallway, hoping to meet one of the sorority sisters, and she did. At 3 in the morning, there was a sorority sister walking down the hall. So she took her and walked her back into our bedroom and turned on the light. And that's when they saw the blood on her. And they walked her back to her bed, and they looked at me in my little ball on my bed, and all the blood that was on the walls, and all the blood on me. And I'm moaning, and I'm groaning, and I'm hurting. And I was yelling for help. I was yelling as loud as I could, but all I was doing was making gurgling sounds because of the blood. She called 911, and the police came. And as I'm laying there, scared that this person was going to come back to me, I saw a police officer standing next to my bed. He was standing there, and I looked at him, and I was cold and scared and bloody, but I knew I was safe. I knew that police officer was not going to let anything happen to me. And so I had a peace. I was hurting so bad, but I had a peace, which was something I needed at that point. Soon after the police were there, they called the paramedics. And they came up to my room, and I remember them saying, "It's okay, honey, you're going to be okay. We're going to take care of you." And that helped calm me as well. And they attended to my wounds as best they could. And they put me on a stretcher, and they took me down those beautiful wooden staircase and out the front door. It was cold out, it was misty, it was black, it was dark. And they took me down the staircase to the sidewalk. And as they did, there was the lights, there was the police car lights and the ambulance lights and the fire truck lights, and they were all swirling. And I could hear the radio walkie-talkies going and people talking to each other. The police officers at the scene, when they were carrying me out the house, thought that I wouldn't survive my wounds that were so great. My face was shattered. I broke my jaw in 3 places. My chin was completely disintegrated. There was no bone there. I cut the wood cut my cheek wide open. You could see inside my mouth. And I about severed my tongue by biting it. So in the ER, they tended to me. They cut off my pajamas and covered me up in this little blanket again. And as I looked up, and I saw a smiling, beautiful face looking down at me. And this face belonged to my friend who had just gotten married that afternoon. She was a nursing student, and her duty was midnight at the hospital. So by seeing her and she telling me I was okay, not really okay, but I was okay in my mind that this was going to be good. And then they gave me drugs, and I went to the ER. And the next thing I remember is being awake in my room.
How long were you in the ER for after the attack?
I was in intensive care for about a week. My parents had been flown up from Miami to Tallahassee, and they were in my room the whole time. And my girlfriend came up, and they were around me. I couldn't talk, and I hurt, and my face was bandaged, just like you see with 2 slits for your eyes because I had so much damage. After about a week, it was time for me to return to Miami with my parents. And there were 2 unmarked police officers that picked us up in 2 cars to take us to the airport. But first, we stopped in front of the sorority house. They wanted me to go up into my room and see if anything was missing, if I could tell anything was gone. And I didn't want to do it, but each officer took an elbow, and slowly we walked up the stairs, and we turned the corner, and I saw yellow crime scene tape on Margaret's door. And then there was yellow crime scene tape on Lisa's door. I didn't register any of that, but they walked me into my room, and there were several officers in there and detectives, and they showed me my dresser, and I don't remember what was on it to begin with, but there was fingerprint dust everywhere on the wall and on the dresser, and then as I looked down my desk, and then I looked down the wall, and I saw my bed, and I saw the blood stains on the wall. They were now brown in color. And I looked at my bed, and it was stained brown with blood. And I saw my beautiful little bedspread I had picked out not 4 weeks earlier, and it was balled up at the end of the bed, and it was also stained in brown blood. And as I stood there, I looked, and I was okay with that. I looked, and I saw what happened. I saw where it happened. And I knew in my mind I didn't have to make anything up. I had in my mind clearly the story of what happened to me.
And when did you find out about the death of your sorority sisters?
I found out about the death of Lisa and Margaret a couple weeks later, being taken back to Miami. My mom didn't want me to follow the news and read the newspaper. She just wanted me to recuperate and just she wanted me to forget all the bad stuff. But I did hear the television stations when they did tell me or tell the news that 2 of the sorority sisters had been killed in the attack and that 2 of the sisters survived. And I couldn't believe it. 2 days earlier, I had been in their rooms and we were talking, and it was just incomprehensible. I don't know if I still understand it.
And what happened to Ted Bundy after that attack? Where did he go?
After the attack, he drove down from Tallahassee in a stolen van, and he went to Lake City, which is in the middle of the state, and he abducted and attacked little Kimberly Leach. She was 12 years old. She was at her school, and Ted Bundy kidnapped her and took her in the van. And he took her to a remote piece of land, and he raped her, and he killed her. And he left her in an old lean-to where the pigs were living, and he left her there. And after that, he started to leave Florida. He drove up the state toward Alabama. He drove up the Panhandle. He made it to Pensacola, where a police officer saw that his car didn't have the right license plates, and he stopped him on a traffic violation. And when he did, he asked for his ID and registration, and he pulled them out, and his ID was stolen, and it didn't match his registration. So they said, hold on a minute, I'm gonna, go check this in with the radio. And then Bundy got out of the car and started to run away. And this officer chased him and got him. And as they were on the ground struggling, Bundy said, "You have no idea who you have here. You have no idea." And the officer's like, "Well, who are you?" And he wouldn't talk anymore. So he was put to Pensacola Municipal Jail, and he was held there. Meanwhile, they're trying to find out who he is with IDs, and he had nothing but stolen money and everything. So he wasn't identified. But Bundy was such a prankster and manipulator, and he never wanted anyone to know who he really was. So he tried to hide it as best he could.
Can you tell me about your experience at the trial?
Yes, I was summoned to do the deposition, and it was held in Tallahassee, so my parents and I were flown to Tallahassee. We went into the courthouse, into a conference room, and the police stood outside the door with my parents. They opened the door and walked me into the conference room, which was a pretty large room, and it had a long conference table. So I went and sat down at the head of the table. I looked up, and there was Ted Bundy sitting on the other end of the table. And I looked at him, and he was very, come on, let's get over this, just like bored. And I remember some of the questions that I was asked, mainly by the defense lawyers, who said, did you ever see him at a club or party? And did you party late at night? And did you ever dance with him or go to, clubs late? And, they were kind of making me feel like I had done something wrong. And of course, I hadn't, and I told him as such. It's made out that Bundy lured them all in, and they went with him willingly, and he attacked them because of that. And it's not true. There were only a couple that went to help him because he had a cast in his arm, or he acted like he was ill. And only a few of those women went with him, and they were killed, and they were mutilated, and they had no right to be treated like that. And he just did what he did because he wanted to. He wanted to kill them. He wanted to feel the need to control them.
What was it like to look into his eyes?
His eyes to me were black. I don't know what color they're supposed to be, but it was just devoid of personality, of anything. He was just that black mass that was behind me. And that's what I saw in his eyes, just evil and just nasty things, just nasty. I didn't feel afraid. I didn't feel scared. I just felt power, that I was on this end, and I was looking at him. He wasn't looking at me in my bed that night. And that was the first time I saw Ted Bundy. The second time I saw him was when I was subpoenaed for the grand jury. Again, my parents and I were flown up to Tallahassee, and I saw him in the courtroom. And there were a lot of questions I had that I couldn't ask. But he was, again, uncomfortably busy and, kind of just like, come on, let's get this over with. You're wasting my time. You're not going to convict me, and all that stuff. So I had to see him then. And after that was over, the third time I saw him was when I was subpoenaed to go to the trial as a witness. Now the trial had moved down to Miami, and this is where I live. So it was easier for me to get to the courthouse, but it was always a zoo. This was the first case that was going to be tried with the cameras in courtroom. It was my turn to testify, and I walked through the galley up to the witness box. I sat down, and I was asked questions. But before that, I looked up, and there was Ted Bundy again. This time, he was sitting next to the defense table. And he was like really rocking his table and like really, not scared. He didn't look uncomfortable. He just looked bored. So I was asked the questions by the prosecution, and then defense asked me questions. And I don't really remember what they were because I was just staring down Ted Bundy. But I do remember the defense asking me, is this the man you accused of attacking you in your bed at the sorority house that night? And I had to look at them, and I had to say, I don't know, because I never saw his face.
How did you feel when you couldn't help, in that sense, to identify Ted Bundy?
I felt upset with myself that I couldn't answer that question. Like I said, I wanted to help convict him, but I knew I had done the best I could, and I told my story the way it happened, and that was all I could do. So I felt good about my testimony. That trial was in the summer of 1979. He was found guilty and was to be put to death. And it felt good. It felt like this is going to now happen, that he was going to be killed. However, it took 10 years for him to be on death row before he was electrocuted. It was to the day of the execution. In the morning, I was called by the sheriff penitentiary and said that this was really it. This is the time he's going to die, and this is the day. My husband and I were living in South Florida, and when we got this news, we turned on television and saw the people on each side of the street pro and death penalty. And it was interesting to watch, seeing all these people, how they could offer up a do not kill thought to what he did, and he should be killed. So we watched, and it was time now for the execution to get underway, but he was in the penitentiary, and he was actually, before that, crying and saying, "Please don't kill me, I'll tell you more victims." And I can imagine those were the words, the last words that the women said to him, "Please don't kill me, please don't." And he did. The lights flickered and the electrocution was over. And I was called and said, it's over now, he's really dead. And my husband and I were downstairs on the sofa, and I started to cry. And I cried, and I cried, and I wailed. And I was thinking of all the beautiful women that he had taken away from us so soon. All the women he had killed were someone's daughter, someone's mother, someone's sister.
What were the emotional wounds that you were left with, Kathy?
Being a survivor of Ted Bundy has been hard. It was mentally and physically draining. Emotionally, pretty much afraid of men. So at one point, I was afraid to go outside early in the beginning. So I would walk outside, I would feel the sun on my face, and I would look at the trees, and I would see each individual leaf. And each leaf was a product of the tree. And all the other leaves were there because the tree was strong. And I would take myself out there when I felt bad for myself or sorry. And that helped me come out of my shell. That helped me realize that I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to get through this.
As a survivor of Ted Bundy, how do you feel about the way that he's portrayed in the media?
I think Ted Bundy is portrayed the way he is because people think of him as charismatic and good-looking and all this stuff, and the media feeds off that. He never held a real job. He stole his clothes. He was a shoplifter for everything he got, even people's money and credit cards, which he would use. He had no worth to himself. He wasn't charismatic. He wasn't, in my mind, good-looking. He wasn't out there to help people or any of that. He was a loser. And yes, the victims are so totally not recognized. I think when they say this was a victim of Ted Bundy and she was going to school and she wanted to be a dancer, but they never do that. And there she goes, just a faceless victim.
How often do you think about the night of your attack, Kathy?
I don't think about it often. Usually on the anniversary in January, I think about it. Sometimes I don't think about it. It doesn't define me. It doesn't make me who I am. Bundy was something that happened to me in the past, and he does not define me now. But I knew it by being strong, and I knew it. I had to face obstacles, but that I was going to do it. And being a victim of Bundy has made me stronger.
I heard his footsteps following me, and I was heading for the end of the road. And as I walked faster, I could hear his footsteps getting faster and faster. And as I ran, I could feel his steps getting nearer and nearer and nearer, so close behind me.